Yes, we are. Oh. Yes, we are.
I will call this joint meeting of the Chelmsford Select Board and Planning Board to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and subsequent orders imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.chelmsfordma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so by accessing the Chelmsford Telemedia website, www.chelmsfordtv.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay, so that takes us to our second item on the agenda, which is the presentation from Trammell Crow. I don't know if Evan or Paul, you want to give any introduction to this, or? No? Okay.
Evan, do you have anything? I mean, I haven't spoken directly with the applicant, so Evan, do you have anything you want to provide as introductory?
Just quickly, I think to just set the stage for this. This meeting has been preceded by several conceptual, preliminary, introductory kind of meet and greet meetings with the proponent. Those date back a couple months ago. I believe 2 select board members joined Paul and I at those meetings. And we talked about a process to introduce this proponent and their vision to the community. And what was discussed or identified as an appropriate first step was tonight's meeting, a joint meeting between the select board and the planning board. So I would say for those involved, it's a first time meet and greet, meet the proponent, meet the developer, introduction to their conceptual vision, and then hopefully that leads to a open dialogue as to what level of interest there is to continue a conversation, and how what those conversations would look like moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. And who will be doing the presentation from Trammell Crow?
Hi, Virginia. This is Andy Huntoon, there's going to be a couple of us, so I'll be starting out. Melissa Robbins is on here. She's going to be speaking at a certain point as well, Dave Hedison is also going to be presenting at certain points along the way. So it'll be a little bit of a group effort on this one.
Okay.
So first off, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. So we're excited to have an opportunity to present more broadly to the joint boards here. We've been working on this site for a couple of months now, as Evan had indicated, and we think we've come up with some what we think are pretty exciting ideas that we would love to share with you. And before we get into the site, really, I thought it would make sense to kind of introduce who we are and our team, so that you know who you're talking to. So,
do you want excuse me, Andy, do you want me to put your slides up yet, or you just...
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, yep. I'm looking at the printout. I didn't even realize it wasn't on the screen, so sorry, that'd be a good idea.
I didn't want to get ahead of you. Hold on a second.
That works. Thanks, Virginia.
Yeah. Just tell me when you want to advance.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess you can just go to the next one. We'll get into all this stuff in a little bit. So, we were just going to kind of run you through who we are, a couple of similar type projects that we're working on, then talk about the site specifically, the history of the site, kind of where it is, what it is, then run you through kind of our vision for the development plan there. Melissa was going to talk about thoughts on, how we can get this done from a legal framework perspective, from a zoning perspective, and then kind of open it up for roundtable discussion, Q&A, and the like. So if you could go to the next one, please, Virginia. So for sponsorship, again, my name is Andy Huntoon. I run the office for Trammell Crow Residential in the Boston metro area. We've got a good team here that works with me. You can go to the next slide, please. The firm itself, we've been in business for 44, 45 years now. We're Texas-based. The firm is owned by the Crow family out of Dallas, and we're a national firm. Really all we build is housing for our portion of the company. We've, over the last 45 years, we've built over 250,000 housing units. We build everything from suburban garden-type product to high-rises in urban cities downtown across the country. We are a developer and a contractor, so we're also the construction company on the projects that we work on. So from a process standpoint, it makes it really easy for the communities that we work in. Once we're done with the design and we're ready to go build, people can still pick up the phone and call me if there's anything they need to talk about. So it provides a lot of continuity, and I think makes it a little bit easier to know who you're going to be working with throughout the process. Next slide, please.
Hey, Billy, how you doing?
I'll blow through this one quickly. We've got 13 offices kind of across the country in a lot of the major metros. So, we're a bunch of local offices. I live in the Boston area, and all the folks on my team also live in the Boston area. So we're a local company with national resources, which when you're building a project of scale like this, you really need, and it makes it beneficial.
Yep. Okay.
You can go to the next one, please, Virginia. From a product standpoint, these are just a bunch of different projects around the country. The one in the top middle is one in Billerica that we did a couple of years ago called Alexion 3 North. It just kind of gives you an idea of the various types of housing that we build. It's nice, clean, modern, safe housing. So, that's really who Trammell Crow Residential is, and I'm happy to answer more detailed questions, but I would guess everybody's more interested in what we're doing at the project than really a detailed bio on us. The other thing that we've done is we've reached out to Dave Hedison from the Chelmsford Housing Authority and Stratford Capital Group, and so this isn't just a project for Trammell Crow. This is going to be a partnership between Trammell Crow, Choice, and the Stratford Capital Group. And our real goal on this is to deliver a variety of housing. So I was going to let Dave just give a little bit on the next slide of an introduction to, his sort of portion of the thing between Choice and Stratford Group.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Virginia, for managing the slides for us tonight. David Hedison, Executive Director of the Chelmsford Housing Authority and Choice. And we are coming to this project in partnership with the Stratford Capital Group. Stratford Capital Group is a national development firm focused on affordable housing, and we have fortunately we've been asked by Stratford Capital to be a partner on a number of their projects. In particular, they were the lead partner on Chelmsford Ridge Residence, Phase 1 and Phase 2 on Middleton Road on a site that was in the town's housing production plan. And we were able to work together to develop 116 100% affordable units. That partnership with Stratford Capital goes beyond Chelmsford. We have 2 projects with them right now in Westford. We just closed a project together in Fairhaven. We have a 3-phase development in Sandwich, Taunton, and some other exciting communities. So our partnership has been able to develop throughout Massachusetts, and it's always exciting for us to be able to come back to my hometown of Chelmsford. And I will say it's been really a pleasant experience working with Trammell Crow. on the potential of this site. And I've been with the Housing Authority, many of you know, for 30 plus years and committed to truly affordable housing. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So the next slide, please, Virginia. So, kind of the core team on this, from an architectural standpoint, we're working with the architectural team, who's a Boston area-based architect who builds a lot of housing. Dave and his team are working with Icon, and we've already had our architects work together on the site plan that we'll show you in a little bit, so we're pretty well integrated there. For civil engineering, we use Allen and Major, and Dave's side is going to use CHA. We'll be our own contractor when we get to the build phase, and I believe that for the choice portion, they're looking to use Delbrook Construction on that. Melissa Robbins, who's on the call, is our local legal counsel. We've also got Nutter, McLennan, and Fish, who's Boston-based, that can assist as well if necessary. And KGP Partners is on the choice side. So there'll be a lot more professionals that will get involved through the life cycle of a project like this, but those are kind of the, we've got a good team in place, we think, to do this. If you could skip 2 slides, we'll just show you kind of some representative projects just to give you a flavor. So this is a project that I developed in Billerica. It was 178 units of rental housing done as a 40B project. It was off of Route 3A, just south of the Chelmsford line where the high-tension power lines run there. We broke ground on this one in September of 17. We finished construction in May of 19. We had a slight delay due to the gas company shutdowns that winter, which was a lot of fun. But really came out as a nice property, integrated well within the neighborhood. We were really proud of this one. If you go to the next slide. As far as what they look like on the inside, we're building communities, so it's not just the unit that someone lives in, but we're trying to build homes and build community where people can, feel like they're part of a neighborhood on the site, as well as kind of building tentacles into the neighborhood as well. And so we put a lot of community space in, big clubhouses, pool tables, fitness centers, Wi-Fi areas, work from home, business lounges with computers, and a lot of places for people to sit. Within the units themselves, they're really nice. The bottom couple pictures there will give you a flavor. It's stone countertops, faux hardwood flooring, a lot of lighting, kind of big, open and airy, I guess would be the way to describe them. Another one that we did on the next slide is down on the south side of Boston in Rentham. We're at Route 1 and 495 here, and this was 240 units that we built that was part of a larger master plan development that included hotels, self-storage, assisted living, retail, restaurants, all kinds of stuff. And so this was the one that we partnered with the town of Rentham on. We helped secure a MassWorks grant to extend a water main down Route 1 that was going to allow for more development in the community overall for them. So I think it was a really good win-win for everybody on that one. And you can skip to the next slide. And just kind of a couple more precedent images on sort of what it looks like, again, with a focus on building community. And then the next slide, please, and I'll flip it back to Dave, is a project that his team did.
Okay, I'm back, everybody. So this here is the choice SCG Chelmsford project. This is just one of the phases. It was 58 units. It was a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, heavier on the 2s, heavier on the 1s, and a limited number of 3s. And it was to provide opportunities for a range of households. So for the 116 units, we were able to secure about $2.3 million of community preservation funds. And then we were able to bring in well over $18 million of private funding from the state and federal government. And currently it's fully occupied, and this is different from what's being proposed at the UMass West campus site. This is all family housing. What we'll be looking at doing is senior.
Thanks, Dave. So you can skip and one more. So now we'll get into talking about, what we're here to talk about tonight, which is really what is the piece of land and what is the opportunity that we think exists here, and how can we work with you all to try to hopefully move something forward. So I think everybody's familiar with the campus. The buildings that are there have been demolished, so those are all gone at this point. They've been removed. There was some, safety issues with those, so those have been taken down. It's a 34-acre piece of land. You can see the existing access off of Route 3A at the top right, and there's the chained-off emergency exit on the bottom side there into the neighborhood. And so that's really, kind of what it looks like today there. And, we can go to the next slide. And again, those buildings have been demolished. And I was going to have Dave, he's been in the community longer than we have, and I think he brings a really good historical perspective to the site. And so just to kind of talk a little bit more about the history of the site, if you could.
Okay, I'm up again. If you get sick of hearing from me, just let me know. But I do love talking about this site. So this site for over 20, we've been looking at this site for over 20 years for development of housing. And it really is a special place. So the buildings, thankfully, have been taken down. And over the years, we've seen a number of different uses for it. As you're aware, the UMass West campus, and then Department of Youth Services, we had some programs for youth that were residing in one of the first buildings where the razor wire was. And it eventually, went up to auction. So I would just like to say a few things about this site. We have actually spoken, Choice and SCG have spoken with 4 or 5 different developers that have looked at this site. And, quite clearly, the vision that I first saw on the site was not really going to be an option. And through each of the discussions, I feel, with each of the developers, the project has improved significantly. And one of the things that I love about the site and the proposal for the site is that we'll be able to see some green space remain on the site for the community. And really, I could say a lot of things, Andy, but I don't want to overstep my line here. But this is one of the sites where it's in our current housing plan that this site should be looked at for housing. And for me, I always say if we can locate a project in an area that the town has chosen, I'll always, do my best to find a project that will work. I'm going to end on that, and I'll probably chime in as a conversation starts, Andy, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, because I think we really are going to get into the meat of it now, is kind of what are we looking to do. So if you could go 2 more slides, Virginia. One more. There we go. And so kind of what are we looking to do, and what's the vision we want to create here? And so this has moved around a lot in the months that we've been working on this. And, the folks that own it now, we have it under contract from them to purchase it. They bought it at the public auction. I think they thought they might develop it themselves, which, I don't think was going to necessarily work. And so one of the big things of an overriding goal for ours is we wanted to keep the area beautiful. We wanted to leave as much open land as we could undeveloped, because I think it's important. And you've got a big chunk of wetlands here, so we're trying to stay away from that and, retain the natural beauty. It's, when you go up onto the property now with those buildings down on a nice day, it's gorgeous. And so I think when you think about putting housing in a location like that, it's going to be really nice. It lends itself to that. The other thing that was really important to me, and I think Dave actually brought a lot of vision in on this, was, as we looked at how we wanted to lay out the site and what types of housing we wanted to put here, we really wanted to build a variety of different housing that was going to meet a variety of different needs within the community. And so that's what we've attempted to do here. And so the setup that we have with Dave and SCG and Choice is that, we would be sort of the master developer on the site, partnered with them. They would take the portion of the site that's circled in yellow, and we would have the portion of the site that's circled in red. That would be sort of our development footprints for our respective portions. But beyond that, there's a lot of infrastructure that is necessary to support a project like this. And so as the master developer, we would deliver redo the driveway in, I guess, since there's already a driveway there. We're going to build an on-site sewer system here, which is necessary to support the housing development here. We would stub the utilities to the choice project so that it's going to benefit from the sewer that we'll build. From a stormwater management system, as the master developer, we're going to design the stormwater management system, again, so that the choice projects can kind of plug into that. So a lot of the stuff that they would rely upon from a services perspective to make their development work, we're going to be able to provide as we do sort of the master development piece of it and leave them a pad to then be able to build their building upon. So from a site plan, does it make more sense to do this? So, as you come in off the entrance now, the choice piece, it's programmed as a 3-story elevator building, and we're targeting about 54 units on that, which would be affordable at a range of affordabilities, kind of 30 to 60% range for affordables for 62 plus, age-restricted development. As you come a little further into the site, then you're going to have on either side of the drive there, what we envision would be to put some townhomes there. So on the left and right, you'd have townhomes, and it'd be, kind of like row houses with 5 of them on each side for a total of 10 townhome units. As you come further into the site on the right there, you'll have 3-story walk-up buildings, and within those buildings, there's about 48 units. And then as you get deeper into the site, you've got the larger buildings there, which are your classic, suburban garden, kind of Class A, 4-story elevator serviced buildings. The one in the middle, I guess I'll say, more C-shaped, is going to have the clubhouse in it with the pool. At least that's how we're envisioning it now. And so, again, with the goal to really try to provide a variety of housing. And if you can go to the next slide, I can kind of walk you through what it all looks like, because it's a lot of parts. So the first one to the left is the 4-story building. And so, those are going to be highly amenitized with elevators, which is great for, really all age groups. It works really well to have the elevators in the building. So that would be, in the 2 buildings there, we'd have about 282 units. And those are going to be our real Class A property. The next building is the 3-story walk-up buildings, and what we do there is they're still really nice buildings, but we try to build them. The approach to the construction on those is that we try to build those at a lower price point, and so instead of having tile in the bathrooms, we would take the tile out and we would substitute, like plastic tubs instead of tile tubs. And so certain things like that allow us to get our construction costs down a little more. And so really trying to target those is, a little bit of a lower cost, option for folks that's still market rate, but, to try to build a little bit more diversity in the offerings. The townhomes are going to be about 1,800, 1,900 foot range. They'd be 3 stories, 2.5 baths. The first level, you'd have a drive-in garage with your living spaces, and on the upper levels, you'd have the 3 bedrooms and the 2 baths upstairs. We think that's going to be a great option for a lot of folks that would want to live in those. And then out at the front of the property is the 3-story elevator service choice buildings, which are going to be 62 plus age-restricted 1 bedrooms. And so kind of when you look at the thing overall, we're about 394 total housing units, split between, senior, affordable, at a variety of AMIs, townhome living as kind of an alternative for folks, 3-story walk-up buildings, and then your sort of traditional 4-story market rate buildings. And importantly, on the unit mix, we're about 60% studio and 1-bedroom units here. We're about 32% 2-bedroom units and about 9% 3-bedroom units is kind of where we've got it right now. And the whole goal is that all of this meshes together to create a community. So when it's all developed, our architects work with the Choice Folks architects over at Icon so that it's a common aesthetic, and it feels like one nice community that really flows together. So that's really what we're going for here, is to build a community with a variety of housing options to meet various needs within the community. Dave, did you want to say anything on this one before we go to the next one?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, so so the next one here, for our portion of the property, we're going to build a big clubhouse. It's going to have fitness centers and pool tables, business offices where folks can work from home. I think kind of post-COVID era, I think the expectation is that people will go back to the office, but I don't think it's going to be like it was. I think you're going to have a lot more people with flex schedules. So we're really trying to design buildings where folks with flex schedules working from home can have, business lounges in their buildings to really encourage that, help reduce, the need to go do rush hour in the morning and that kind of stuff. Grilling stations, we'll put a pet park somewhere on the property, bike storage, a bike service area for people to kind of take care of their own bicycles. We'll do electric vehicle charging stations on the property as well. That's obviously a growing demand. And then from the units, it'll be similar to the other projects we've built. So, stone countertops, forward flooring in the units, just nice, big, spacious homes for people to live in. So that's what we're looking at there. If you go to the next one, please. And I think this might be duplicative. I think when we were thinking about putting this together, we might have got ahead of ourselves. But so again, kind of for the TCR portion of it, we're looking at this would be the market rate housing portion of the overall development. So we'd have some townhomes, we'd have some 3-story walk-ups, and then we'd have the 4-story elevator service buildings, staying away from the wetlands and leaving a lot of green space, providing the on-site sewer system, which would also support the Choice project, providing the on-site stormwater system, which would support the Choice project, and really trying to honor the property lines and set back as much as we can to minimize views from the neighboring abutters, and try to descale the property and kind of keep it contained within the campus site that we're on here. And then on the next one, Dave can kind of walk you through a little bit more of the vision of what they're working on their piece.
So we're looking at, right when you enter the site, we'll have a parking in front of the building. We have said, or the presentation did say 2 buildings. It's actually 1 building with 2 wings. There'll be a center core. There'll be 2 elevators. We will have granite countertops and tile flooring, even though it's 100% affordable. We'll be accessing or looking for utilizing some of the town inclusionary funding and using that and as leverage to potentially access between $12 and $15 million of state and federal tax credits. There'll be, we're hoping for 54 1-bedroom units, similar in size and nature to what we have in North Chelmsford, which is the Choice Center. It's a high-end senior affordable development. And if you were at the planning board when I spoke, I talked about the different income levels. So I would say when you create units that are for people earning 30% or less of median income, I would have a line down the street around the corner to probably the next 2 towns over. At 50% AMI, we'd have a pretty long line, and at 60%, we'll still have a really long line. So this creates 54 units for seniors with the 70% as permitted by law, local preference for Chelmsford people, and really meets a significant need for the community. I'm thrilled to see a portion of the site carved off specifically to be maintained and controlled by a local entity. I think that's all from me.
Okay. And then we're going to invite Melissa to talk a bit about kind of, the legal procedures that we're thinking about on this one. So I'll turn it over to Melissa Robbins.
Thank you. And you could see my slide was blank, and I will tell you why. Your normal tools for zoning out here are not going to work. I mean, oftentimes the two tools we use for zoning to create housing like this is either 40B, and that tool will not work because we do not have 25% affordable, that the project would be too large to accommodate that. Also, your regular COID or BAOD zoning is not going to work here either. It's not zoned for CEIOD permitting, and it also wouldn't get us to the finish line to develop something like this. So what I would be suggesting, most likely to develop a project such as this, is to do a new overlay for this development. I think that the COID gives us a good structure to start with, maybe as a launch pad, but there would have to be some modifications to get there. The good news is that this may qualify under the new economic development legislation of 2020. And what that means is it may change the voting threshold at town meeting. Some eligible sites under that legislation, if you're found to be an eligible site, you only need a simple majority to approve this overlay at town meeting and not a supermajority. And as we get a little bit further along in this process, we can discuss that at a little bit more length. And I won't get into the zoning anymore. If, as we go through this discussion, if the board has any ideas or suggestions or questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Are you referring to the MBTA community?
Yeah, I know it has about 4 different titles. Some people call it the MBTA community. Other people call it the economic development legislation. But what it did is it made some changes to 40A that changed some of the voting thresholds if you meet certain requirements. And I think this site may make those requirements so that we would trigger those new 40A rules.
It's pretty close to making.
Yeah.
Does anyone else on either of the boards have questions? I can go around. I'm just going to take them as the order I see them on my screen. Ken LaFave, do you have any questions?
I have 2 questions. The first one is this housing project, Dave, you had said for the Chelmsford community, is this limited to Chelmsford residents, your portion?
On our portion, we'll have the 54 units, hopefully, and we're through the process. I would anticipate the decision would read 70% as permissible by law shall be provided a local preference to those that live or work in Chelmsford.
So about 35 of them would be local.
Yes.
And then you talked about,
At a minimum.
You talked about, yeah. And you talked about what the cost would be to use ratios or dollars amounts. What does it look like as far as what the prices would be for the apartments?
Okay, at 30% AMI, we're looking at 8 to 16, most likely 16 of the units would be set aside with rental assistance from our office. So if, let's say, your great aunt, I'm sorry to make it a personal, but let's say someone's great aunt comes in and she earns $1,000 a month, she'd be paying 30% of that. So it could be $300. So it's basically the 30% units are based upon their income. The next level is a 50% AMI, and that's similar to what we see at the Kinlock. So we're looking at a rent that's below $1,000 a month for a senior. And again, that's typically a senior who's earning somewhere between, around I'd say $2,500 to $3,000 a month. And then the 60% AMI units is around $1,200 at the 60% mark.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay. The next person I see is Pat Wojcik. Do you have any questions, Pat?
I just have one question about the clubhouse facilities. Will those be available for everybody, including the choice residents?
I think the way we have it contemplated right now is that the clubhouses for each section would be programmed for each section. So within the choice building, they're going to put a resident area, I believe, in their building, and we'll put a resident area in our building. I think outside the walking areas and stuff, that's going to be sort of more open.
Okay.
Can I share with that? So Pat, with our building, we will have
Yes.
specific amenities targeted for our seniors. is raised garden beds, community space for all of our programming. And one of the things that we did discuss as a whole team was that if there's a dog park, some of the outdoor amenities will be shared and made available, which was really nice.
Right.
Okay, that sounds fair. Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Mike Raceback? You're on mute.
Sure, got it. I would be curious if you have any information at this point on the nature and size of the sewage treatment that you plan to put in there. I'm sure everybody's aware of the current sewage situation in town, and I suspect that there'll be some questions on that.
Sure, yeah. So what we've done so far, Mike, is we've had On-Site Engineering is a Boston-based consultant that does private sewer systems, and so we've had them on site, and they've done a bunch of test pits, which is just digging holes in the ground to look at the soils, for lack of a better way to put it. And it's a pretty sandy soil site, which is frankly perfect for doing a sewer system because it's really easy to leach the water back into the ground. And so the proposal is that, we'll build a sewer system that's going to accommodate, all of the units, inclusive of the Choice project on site. The exact location of the leaching fields, which go below grade, and the exact location of there's some equipment that goes in a building. It's kind of a shed-looking building that's usually about 15 feet by 20 feet, something like that. So we're still playing with where those need to be to make it all work the best. But generally speaking, we're going to design the system that accommodates 100% of everything generated on site.
Got you. And now, is there any consideration to, in the long run, perhaps hooking up to town sewer, or would this be considered a permanent solution?
It would be the permanent solution. Okay. So they're expensive plants to build, and so once we've built it, it would just be self-contained. Part of the permitting process on these, Mike, is that once you've built it and you've commissioned it, there's a state-mandated escrow account that we would have to pre-fund for replacement reserves to maintain the plant, so that there isn't a worry in the future. Is there going to be money to pay for repairs? It's pre-funded along with construction.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Paul McDougall?
I have a question on, has there been a traffic study done with the 800 so cars that'll be involved in this?
Paul,
Go ahead.
Has there been any thought into the traffic patterns around that area?
yes, we will be looking at the traffic patterns in that area. We're just trying to nail down first what the total number of units will be and if we have town support. Luckily here, we're along some major ways, so although we will have an impact to the roadways, I think that we won't have a significant impact. And also, as Andy had pointed out in his presentation, I think with the shift in some traffic patterns from the pandemic, some of the amenities that we're proposing in this housing will be suited for people that are now working from home and maybe working from home permanently. And I don't think Andy touched base on this either, but there will be some amenities that will allow for alternative vehicles such as bicycles. Not only do they have bicycle racks throughout the site, but they also have storage areas for bicycles on site. And they also have areas for electric vehicles. So I think that's good to note, but we do know that we will need a traffic study for a project of this size, and it will be completed when it's suitable to do so.
Okay.
Mark Carrata?
Yeah, just two quick questions. With regard to fresh water, is that coming out of North Chelmsford?
Yes. So Mark Baranski, I'm just thinking, on my team, has been up there and met with, I forget the gentleman's name, Mark. Who'd you meet with?
It's the water super.
Bruce Harper?
Bruce, yeah.
Bruce Harper. So we've spoken with them, and so I think they're good, and we just have to work with them to get it done.
Okay, so I don't see any issues capacity-wise or et cetera. And with regard to landscaping, snow removal, is that those shared services between Trammell Crow and Choice?
Yeah, so Mark couldn't hear him but we don't think they have any capacity issues. And then for landscaping and snow removal, so, we'll designate snow storage areas on our site to make sure that that's accommodated for. I think the snow plowing for the driveway entrance, that's probably largely just going to be us. I think that'll do that. And then Choice will handle, the parking lots that they have specifically for their site. It might make more sense for us to just use the same contractor. I think that's, a few details that
Okay.
Dave and his folks will figure out as we get there. From a landscaping perspective, again, we want to make it look like one project. I know they're going to have some landscaping things that they want to do, and we'll have some stuff that we want to do. But I think for sort of the overall site in general, we're going to take care of everything. And I think for the stuff that's specifically on, within the boundary of their portion, that they would take care of just that piece to help. That way they don't have, we're really trying to be cognizant of operating expenses for the affordable housing project. And so if we can handle it as part of ours, it makes it work better for them to be able to afford to build those units to meet their need.
Great, thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Tim Shanahan?
I was wondering, will there be other entrances or exits, or will you just keep the one entrance to the property?
For right now, we've got the one entrance to the property shown in approximately the same location where it presently is.
Okay. And is this a project that Trammell Crow would keep as part of their portfolio, or would there be plans to sell it off, once completed, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So right now, we're actually looking at doing this is probably about a 10-year hold. And maybe it's 15, but, kind of a longer-term investment for the firm. We really like the real estate a lot. And so, that's the expectation going in, is that we would plan to be the long-term holder. Can that change? It can change at times, but, currently right now, the capital sources that we have put together, the plan is that we would hold this longer term.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
George Dixon?
Yeah, thanks, Virginia. Kenny asked basically all the questions that I was, my biggest concern was getting the Chelmsford residents and getting as many Chelmsford residents as occupants as possible. Well, we have a big waiting list, and it'd be nice to knock it down pretty well. That's all. I think, good luck on the project if it goes through, and I think it's a beautiful spot for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Henry Parley?
Yes, thank you. We've been struggling with the 10% affordable housing. What percentage of this whole project will be affordable, and what gets counted towards a levy?
Do you remember the exact percentage, Henry, of what the units are? I want to say it's about 13% with this calculation. And all of the Chelmsford Housing Authority units would count towards the inventory, but the entire site would not.
I understand that. I'm just trying
Okay.
to. So you're saying 13% over the entire site, or 13% plus the 54 units?
No, 13% across the entire site.
So we've gained out of 3%. We don't 3% out of 500 units. We don't. It's pretty close to a wash. We make a little bit on it as far as for 10%. At least we don't lose ground, but we don't make much either. And Melissa, how many units would this be allowed by right?
I'm not sure what the as of right plan is, Henry, but the other tools, the other COID tool wouldn't be available, so I didn't even do the calculation, the floor area ratio, to try to figure out the number of bedrooms. But we could come up with an as of right plan.
Yeah, I mean that it would be helpful. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but just an as of right plan would be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Henry, just to the point on the 10%, if it does go through, if we do look at some of that housing choice legislation, that's one of the thresholds to be counted as well. is that a minimum of 10% have to be affordable. So we would comply with that threshold if we go forward with any part of that legislation.
Deirdre Connolly?
Just a couple quick things. The roads, the driveway, et cetera, are all private, is that correct?
That's correct. It'd be privately owned and privately maintained, yes, ma'am.
So the walking trails, would they be available to non-residents to walk on?
I think that's something that we're open to looking at. And so, you know, I think if you could toss Virginia, if you wouldn't mind just tossing one of the site plan pictures back up again, it might be easier to talk about it with a picture up.
Yep,
I don't
hold
know,
on a second.
like page 19 of that PDF would probably be a good one, I guess. So, you know, I think within the apartment community portions of it, you know, where we're going to have residents, I don't think the intent really is to open those aspects of it up, but there is a large chunk of land around the wetlands that is going to be undeveloped, and so if there's an ability to put any kind of paths or anything in there, it's certainly something that we would be open to taking a look at. You know, with the wetlands there, I don't know how viable it is, I'm not sure, to actually put, you know, firm trails in, but I think as we advance the engineering here further, we're open to looking at what gets done with sort of the undeveloped portion of the property, you know, kind of from a go-forward standpoint, because we're not going to need it, and we don't want to develop it. So, you know, my view is it's important to leave that green space. So whatever happens in there is, you know, we could talk about that.
Okay, and then the other question I have is the, well, I guess I have two more. One is the market rate, obviously it's a moving target, but do you have any like ballpark? I mean, all the units in the TCR are market rate, correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And do you have any like rough idea of what those would rent for, like, you know, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3?
Yeah, sure. So, you know, the studios are, you know, going to kind of be, you know, kind of $1,700 to $1,900 a month range, probably somewhere in that range is kind of what these go for these days. The 1 bedrooms would be a little bit more than that. The 2 bedrooms would be kind of in the, you know, low to mid $2,000 a month range. And then the 3 bedrooms, you know, kind of upper $2,000 a month range is kind of where those shake out.
Okay, and then my last question is for David. David, if we were to have, was it 54 units to be affordable for over 62, how much of an impact would that have on our now, whatever, 10-year waiting list for affordable housing? Would it like cut it in, cut it down by 1/4 or by 20% or by 3%?
I love that question. Because it's a moving target. This is my problem, because if I'm really successful, Deirdre, with what I do, they stay alive longer, healthier, and happier. And it cuts down on my turnover in my units. So currently, over the past year, we've had about 40 vacancies. So you've seen a significant, you know, passing of our residents, I'll say. So when I add 54 units in to this mix, I could probably, it's 3 different income levels, so it's 3 different groups of people.
Sure.
It'll make a significant impact. But the problem is, as everyone's living longer, if we get a bunch of 62-year-olds that move in, we may have them for 25 years up at the site. If we choose, you know, if you know what I'm saying. So this will make a huge dent. And I could not say, there's no other site in Chelmsford I could say where we could put 54 senior, 100% senior units. And this is when I get really excited and giddy that we might be able to make a big difference. So I'm thrilled.
Okay, that's it for me.
Nancy Arroway?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment on it, or maybe it's a concern, and that is the section that's four stories. I don't have a problem with it, but I can guarantee you the neighbors are gonna go crazy about that height. So just be aware that to get it through the planning, the public sessions are going to get interesting.
So Nancy, I appreciate the comment. And so one thing that we've spent some time on over the last few months is really doing outreach to the community. So we got a certified abutters list from the town, and we sent an introductory letter to every certified abutter to say who we are, provide our contact information, and invite them to reach out to us. The way we do business is we want to talk to the folks that live nearby. We want their feedback. The way we've designed the site right now, we've pulled the buildings back a bit. We're honoring the tree lines there, trying to maintain the vegetated buffer. There's a green space area, at the corner of, is it Augusta Way, I want to say, if I'm getting my roads right, that, was very important to the neighborhood over there. And so we're making sure that we stay far away from there. So we're really trying to do everything we can to make sure that we can be good neighbors with the folks that already live in the community. And so, and I think the feedback that we've gotten so far, to me anyway, seems that I think we're doing a good job at that, and we're going to keep doing it. We're not done by any stretch. And so, I think there's a lot of conversations about landscaping that we'll have, where do we need fences, kind of how do we do those types of things. So I hear you, and it's top of mind for us, and we want to make sure we do a good job, talking with the neighbors.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Erica Clifford?
No questions, thank you.
Mike Walsh?
I have no questions. Thank you, Virginia.
Is there anybody from the two boards I haven't acknowledged? I'm going to go to save rounds in a minute. Okay, I just have one question that nobody has raised yet. Do you have any metrics or history from your developments on what percentage of the units wind up being families with children, or how, in terms of like the school systems, how many new children might be introduced by this that the school systems have to support?
Yeah, so I don't have exact numbers yet, but we can definitely get those for you in pretty short order on what we think. I think, we wanted to kind of get to an idea of what this is going to look like, and then we'll engage somebody that can actually put together an independent report, so it's not just me that's telling you the stuff. But, I think our view is it's an intergenerational campus. There's going to be a senior component. The target market for that, there's not really going to be kids there per se. The target market for what we're doing, will we have kids? The answer is yes, we will. Are we really going to go out and target families? It's not what we do. These higher density housing projects like this really work better for working professionals and empty nesters, and so you do get kids there, but they're not teeming with kids. And so, it'll be something that is of concern that we'll study more for you. But I think when we get the data for you, that I don't think it's going to be scary, because it's just not the way these buildings work in general.
Okay, thank you. Ken, did you have another question? Ken LaFay, did you have another question?
I did, thank you. Just one more quick one. For the people that are in the residents on the choice side, will they be able to use the clubhouse, the amenities, the pools, the business center, except?
So this is David. Can I chime in and say we haven't asked. Usually, it's not part of our model to have one of our products, one of our senior developments have access to these private other amenities from a totally different site. And liability wise, I don't really know if I want your residents, Andy, coming over to my building, just for liability purposes. But it's our understanding, Ken, that I did not ask for access to their amenities, because we're pretty much going to be doing supportive services and programming on our site.
All right, so they are set up like two separate entities.
Yes.
But do they look like one?
Yes, they will look like the same product. So I will say that, you know, Icon Architects, who we've engaged, have worked with the architectural team that Trammell Crow's using. So they know each other. They do similar products, and we're committed to making sure that Trammell Crow has, you know, oversight and significant input, so we look like one campus, you know, just another building as part of the whole team.
The one nuance, Ken, is, you know, the interior amenities, those probably don't work to share, as Dave talked about. You know, but certainly for the folks that live in the Choice property, if they want to go out of their building, take a left and go for a walk and go up around our property, you know, through the parking areas and on the sidewalks and stuff, you know, that's going to be available for them. We're not going to, you know, say no on that. So I think as far as sort of the outside stuff, exclusive of, you know, the pools and the inside clubhouses, I think it's a lot easier there because you're just on sidewalks. And so I think, you know, there's a big benefit from that aspect to just being able to get outside and go stretch your legs.
But can I just add one more thing to Andy, just to this whole conversation? Mm-hmm. When we were looking at the site plan for the other site, the TCR development, you know, with the number of studios and 1 bedrooms, the number of seniors that we have, that they're no longer, I'm going to say the background of the number of seniors that are coming to look for housing, who have owned their home in Chelmsford that's now valued at $400,000 or $500,000, who are looking for a product they can get into right away with amenities. I mean, the seniors we helped 30 years ago, or we saw, versus the seniors of today, 62 and over, there's going to be a lot of people from my building who have friends up the hill, and then maybe snuck into your pool.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
Any other sage rounds from anyone on the 2 boards? Paul or Evan, are there any additional comments you want to make? Paul Cohen or Evan Belansky?
So I think as part of my opening statement, and I think you're hearing the proponents mention this, my understanding is they're looking for some indication that there is conceptual support or conceptual or amenable interest in discussing this further. You've heard from the zoning. This will require a town meeting rezoning. It's not going directly to a planning board special permit process. The best way that I can describe this rezoning would be a project-based rezoning, meaning that if the community, these 2 boards choose to move forward and engage with the proponent, it's likely going to be a project-based rezoning, which means that the overlay is designed to achieve a specific outcome, a very predictable outcome. And the presentation at town meeting that's developed by the planning board process or some sort of makeup of the planning board and others will be project-based. So there wouldn't be any surprises, and it'd be a very predictable outcome. But I think what the proponent is looking for is some indication that path to town meeting, based upon their vision, which again, I'm assuming is economically viable for them, is something that the community, particularly through a town meeting rezoning process, is one that the community views as either of interest or politically viable, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, so I was going to go there next, Evan. I just wanted to, in terms of the project or anything else, is there anything else on your, that comes to mind for either of you?
I would echo the data set here that it's 60% 1 bedrooms. I think that's a fantastic start. It alleviates, as the planning board knows from experience, that alleviates a lot of general concerns. It certainly should minimize many concerns related to school-age children, water and sewer infrastructure impacts, traffic impacts, things of that nature. So even though it's 400 units, not all units are the same, meaning it's not 400 two-bedrooms or 400 three-bedrooms. And as this process rolls out and we do physical impact studies and school-age children studies, that 60% one-bedrooms is heavily going to come into play. And I think the community will begin to understand from a data set perspective how important that 60% one-bedrooms, again, not only is from minimizing impacts, but likely serves the housing needs of our existing residents. And I think, as David is mentioning, how part of the housing strategy with any project, one particularly in an opportunity like this, is how can the community proactively mold, massage the housing component so that it truly serves the housing need of our existing residents. Single bedroom, moderately priced, moderately sized, certainly seems to be a housing need in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Paul Cohen, did you have any other comments?
Yeah, I'll just tack on to what Evan was saying. I mean, I think it's got to be seen in comparison to what is it currently zoned for right now. And it's my understanding you could place 22 single-family homes on that property given its size. And I think the same question should be provided, or information should be provided either by the town or the applicant about, well, what's the impact of that occurring? So if it's 22 four-bedroom homes, that are probably priced somewhere around $700,000, $800,000. What is the impact in terms of the town, in terms of school children and other aspects of what can happen by right? Because in some manner or form, some type of development is going to happen on this 30+ acres. But I think that information would be helpful as the community assesses how to proceed going forward. I think the other question is, and I think it was sort of that housing need, is we've looked at this property over the years. I mean, if you remember, the early iterations was a age-in-place senior facility where, it would be people who live independent, then it would be semi-independent, and then under care. Obviously, that's not it, but I think the question becomes is there a sufficient demand and need of an aging community such as Chelmsford for the entire project to be 55+, and be a senior community in its whole, beyond what David is providing, but for the entire project. And I think that has to be considered as well, because if you remember, again, having spent some time on this over the years as the community evaluated the site, that was sort of the original concept was how can we provide a need for a community of people who wish to stay in the community, but no longer need a large single family home. On a more zoning or planning type of a question, I think what I don't see here is how it connects into the neighborhoods, the adjoining neighborhoods. Typically with a project like this, you would see the proposal of sidewalks along the front or on Princeton Street, and those are the type of things that you would see for these type of developments, much like you saw on Kinlock on Turnpike Road, where there's sidewalk construction and so forth. I think that's what I'm not seeing in this plan is where is the connection to the community? It was talked earlier about, well, we've got this open space in the front, which could be walking areas, small park or type of an area, but I don't see that on the plans either in terms of what does it offer to the greater community as well as those who live on the site. And so I would hope that if this does advance, that those type of issues could be further refined, because again, you want it not to be a standalone entity within the town, but you really want it to be integrated into the community. It's noted with the one entrance, I understand that, and obviously the emergency egress to the rear. But again, I think perhaps some aspects in the front of the property, by the wetland area and in Princeton Street, perhaps could be an enhancement to the community in terms of a park area, sidewalks, and so forth that would enhance that neighborhood. So again, those are the initial thoughts that I have this evening.
Thank you. So if there's support for this evening, the next step would be that the proponent would start to work with the planning board? Or do you envision that you would come back to the two boards for more feedback? I'm just trying to, if the zoning overlay is what would be required.
Sorry, it took me a second there to unmute. Madam Chairperson, I think the next step would be if there's support, I think we could do two things. If there's general support amongst these two boards, we could have a site visit if anybody's inclined to do so. I know that lots of you may have seen it when there was still structures on the property, when the tax sale is happening. So if there's any interest in that, we could go out on site just so we can get a better feel of the site. And the second thing I think what would happen if there's general support is we could start trying to think about what the structure would look like for town meeting, and that could be done with, between the applicant and town staff. And then we could either come back to the planning board or this joint boards with some of the structure before we get too far to make sure that we're going down a route that could be supported.
The only other thought that I had that I forgot to bring up is you might want to think about whether it's appropriate to work with either or both boards, even to have an early public input session, not a formal public hearing that's legally required, but an early public input session to hear from the neighbors or others in town, and maybe start that buy-in process a little bit early, assuming that it is supported here.
I agree.
Just a thought.
Yes, absolutely.
So as a process question, we don't need a formal vote this evening, do we? Or it's just like kind of an indication of support from the members that are present?
Correct. Yeah, there's no need for a formal vote at this point, just a general indication of support.
Okay, so unless anyone has a different thought, since we're on Zoom, I'll just go around roll call. And if you could indicate whether or not you're supportive of the applicant and the town and the boards exploring this to the next level. Okay. Again, I'm just going to go around in the order that I see you on my screen so I can keep track. Ken LaFave.
I would be interested in seeing more.
Okay. Pat Wojcik.
Yeah, I'm also interested in seeing how the proposal progresses. Encouraged that they've already begun outreach to the neighbors. So yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what's going on, and I would like a site visit too.
Okay. Henry Parley.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of encouraged. I'm not really happy about the 13%. I would rather see a little bit higher percent in affordable.
I'm sorry, Henry, you cut out a little bit. There was some background noise from someone. Could you say you're not really happy about what?
The 13%, I'd like to see that be a little bit higher number, because it's basically almost a level playing field. It gives us a couple more units, but not a lot. But generally, I'm in favor of the project.
Thank you. Mike Raceback?
Yeah, I very much agree with Henry. I'm very positive on this project. I like what I'm seeing here. It would be nice to get a little bit more in the way of affordability, but we should progress with this.
Thank you. Paul McDougall?
Yeah, I feel like there's definitely an opportunity there for the town. And it's going to be up to the town meeting.
Tim Shanahan?
I'm in favor of seeing more.
Okay. Mark Carrata?
I'm in favor of seeing more, and I think a site visit would be good. And I think some concentration on some of the key issues that were brought up here tonight should be focused on quickly to get some more clarification on some of those items.
Deirdre Connolly?
I am very in favor of seeing this proceed. I agree with Mike Raceback and Henry. I would love it and be much more amenable to the project if there were at least like a 15% level of affordability. I really, what we need in this town, or one of the things we need pretty dramatically, is more affordable units. And I also would very much like to do a site visit.
George Dixon?
Yes, I'm in agreement to going forward to pursue this.
Okay.
And I would like a site visit.
Nancy Arroway?
Yeah, I'm in favor of seeing it go forward, but again, I'm going to agree with the other planning board members that I'd like to see a higher percentage of affordable.
Okay, thank you. Erica Clifford?
I'm going to repeat what everyone else has said thus far, and it sounds like a great plan, but it would be great to see a better percentage for the affordable units.
Okay. Is Mike Walsh still here? I don't see him.
I think he left.
Okay. And I'm also in favor of seeing more. Did I miss any board members? Okay.
Virginia, I just had a question for Melissa Robbins, the project applicant, and maybe Evan. Evan, obviously all the CHA, the choice units would be affordable and count to the town's subsidized inventory. Is it possible that if they put affordable units in the Trammell Crow development, that those would be eligible for the town's subsidized housing inventory? Because I don't see how that can be possible. Or am I missing something?
No, it's possible.
The units that are in the Chelmsford Housing Authority portion of the project can be counted. Because they'll be deed restricted, they'll be the proper affordable level, so they'll meet all the boxes to be counted. What it won't do is drag those other units in. And one of the major reasons is because it won't be interdispersed throughout the entirety of the project. They're going to be located in one spot.
But I think what Paul was asking is if the project evolves where units, TCR units are affordable. If they're deed restricted affordable and they meet the DHCD guidelines, then they can be submitted as local action units approved under local zoning, which is exactly what we did under 104 Turnpike.
Yes, but I think unless 20% of all of the units within the market rate units are affordable, we couldn't count the entirety of the project.
It'd just be those that were deed restricted affordable.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, so Evan, Melissa, Andy, do you have what you need from here?
Yeah, my suggestion is offer for consideration based upon the input received is that staff works with the proponent to develop a kind of timeline or action plan moving forward. We've talked about, a site visit, likely a second meeting with the joint board. So kind of articulate, what at the next meeting, what that time frame would be, what would be some action items, so that we're all kind of working on the same schedule moving forward. And likely a process for board engagement and public engagement.
Andy and Melissa?
Yes, we're in agreement with that. Yes, and we can coordinate through Evan and get a couple dates out there so the board can get out to site, and we'll do a couple days because I know it's not easy to coordinate so that we can get everybody that's interested in going out on site onto site.
Okay. Are there any other comments from the board members, the town or Trammell Crow?
One more quick question. David, how many stories is the Choice building?
3 stories.
Could that be 4, or did you decide not to do 4 just because of how close it was to the road?
So the sweet spot for doing a project like this is around 35 units to, let's say, 58.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, so the range is 37 to like 58, and we're at 54.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone have anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
You have it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, anyone second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for all your time this evening.
Yes, thank you to the proponents.
Thanks a lot. Be good.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
We really appreciate your time.